Imagine waking up one day to find your entire city under foreign control, your temple destroyed, and your people in exile. The world you once knew, shattered. It sounds terrifying, doesn't it? But this was the reality for the Israelites when Babylon conquered Jerusalem. And who would have thought that their salvation would come from one of their greatest enemies, Persia, the nation we now know as Iran? Yes, Iran, a country that many today see as a distant land, played a critical role in some of the most shocking events in biblical history. What if I told you that Iran is more than just a modern-day nation in the Middle East? It's a nation named in ancient prophecies that shaped the destiny of God's chosen people. The Bible doesn't just focus on Israel, Egypt, and Babylon. Iran, known as Persia in biblical times, was prophesied to rise, conquer, and, shockingly, help restore Israel in ways you wouldn't expect. In today's video, we're going to explore Iran's deep biblical roots, starting from the descendants of Noah, through to the rise of the Persian Empire under Cyrus the Great. But we won't stop there. We'll dive into how Persia, a nation of pagan kings, was used by God to rebuild his people, fulfill ancient prophecies, and ultimately alter the course of history. What you're about to hear will not only change how you view Iran but also reveal how God's plan can use anyone, even those outside his covenant, to fulfill his divine purpose. To understand Iran's role in the Bible, we need to go back, way back, to the story of Noah's descendants. After the Great Flood, Noah's 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, became the ancestors of all the nations. Japheth's son, Madai, became the forefather of the Medes, who would later form an alliance with the Persians. Together, they laid the foundation for what would become the powerful Medo-Persian Empire. Now, this isn't just a historical footnote. The Medes and Persians would go on to become one of the most dominant forces in the ancient world, rising from the same region that is modern-day Iran. The Bible places these people in the lineage of Noah's sons, tying Iran's ancestry directly to the biblical narrative. But Persia's role doesn't stop at its origin. Fast forward to the Babylonian conquest of Jerusalem in 586 BC, the Israelites were taken into exile, their beloved temple destroyed. For 70 long years, they remained in Babylon, just as the prophet Jeremiah had foretold. Then came a pivotal moment, the rise of Cyrus the Great, the Persian king who would change everything. Cyrus didn't just conquer Babylon, he fulfilled a prophecy made over a century before he was born. Isaiah named him specifically as the one who would restore Israel, calling him God's shepherd and even God's anointed. This is shocking because Cyrus was a pagan king, yet he was chosen by God to fulfill his will. Cyrus issued a decree allowing the Israelites to return to their land and rebuild the temple in Jerusalem, marking a turning point in Israel's history. This wasn't just a political move. It was a prophetic fulfillment that changed the course of God's people. Persia, a foreign power, became the instrument of Israel's redemption. Can you imagine the impact of this? The Israelites, after decades of suffering and displacement, were able to return home and restore their faith, all through a pagan king who didn't worship their God. But Persia's involvement in biblical history doesn't end there. The Book of Esther gives us another powerful example of how God used this nation. During the reign of King Xerxes, a Persian official named Haman plotted to annihilate the Jewish people. Yet, through God's providence, a young Jewish woman named Esther had become queen. Encouraged by her uncle Mordecai, Esther took a bold step by revealing her Jewish identity to the king and pleading for the lives of her people. This story of Esther, one of divine intervention, shows how Persia once again played a critical role in the survival of God's people. The Jews were saved from annihilation, and the event is still celebrated today during the festival of Purim. Throughout all these accounts, it becomes clear that Persia wasn't just a passive observer in biblical history. From Cyrus' decree to Esther's bravery, Persia was an active participant in ensuring Israel's survival. God used this pagan empire in remarkable ways, showing that his plan transcends borders, religions, and empires. And it doesn't stop with the past. The Bible also places Iran, Persia, at the center of future prophetic events. In the book of Daniel, the rise and fall of world empires are foretold, with Persia playing a central role. Persia's empire was vast, but it was prophesied to give way to the rise of Greece under Alexander the Great. And yet, its influence remained, setting the stage for the New Testament era. Perhaps most chilling of all are the prophecies in Ezekiel, which describe Persia's role in the end times. In Ezekiel 38-39, Persia is named as one of the nations that will join forces with Gog of Magog in a massive war against Israel. This final battle, known as the War of Gog and Magog, is yet to occur but holds a significant place in biblical prophecy. Modern-day Iran is the continuation of this ancient legacy, and its influence on the region, especially in relation to Israel, is undeniable. While the future remains uncertain, one thing is clear: Iran's place in biblical prophecy is far from over. So, as we look at today's world and the tensions in the Middle East, especially between Iran and Israel, we must understand that these events are part of a much larger, divine narrative. A narrative that began thousands of years ago and will ultimately culminate in the fulfillment of God's plan for humanity. Persia, now Iran, has always been a key player in the Bible's grand narrative. From its ancient origins through its rise to power under Cyrus the Great, to its future role in prophecy, the nation has played a pivotal role in shaping the destiny of God's people. History, as the Bible reveals, is not just a collection of empires rising and falling. It's the unfolding of God's plan for the redemption of the world. Stay tuned as we uncover more of Persia's fascinating history and explore its profound significance in God's divine plan.